I have had the new Epic Bait Molds Open Pour Mullet for a little over a week now, and I have poured quite a few successfully, but I have messed up on quite a few as well. So today, I share with you my lessons learned so you can avoid my mistakes, and you guys can get to making sweet baits right away. So I'm sure that you guys have seen this mold already. It's been out for about a week. Multiple content creators have done videos on it already. Of course, Marling launched it as it's a Marling Baits Epic Bait Molds collaboration mold. But I've also seen videos by Bait Chuckin', by Last Swim. I believe Joe over at Bait and Tackle just dropped one the other day. So lots of good content out there. Encourage you to go check those out if you haven't already. I have tried to amass a number of examples of what worked and what didn't. And my thoughts along the way, I've actually written them down to make sure I try to take good notes so that I can share with you guys how is it that, given the innovation of this mold and the nuances that are in it, how can you start pouring this guy with success right away. So general specs on this bait, 3.9 inches, so just under 4 inches. It's made with a flat nose, so there's no eye sockets or recessions for the eye. That's going to be on the jig if you choose to use a jig with eyes. It's a belly pour, so the last thing you're going to pour is the belly color, not the top color. It's inverted, much like the Epic Sucker. Lots of fin detail, lots of scaling detail, and this curve in the tail back here gives it some very interesting action, as well as this back little fin here. Supposedly on the fall, this thing does wacky, awesome stuff. And then quite possibly the most interesting part of the whole thing is this recessed tail section. You see that? It's not open on the top. That's what she looks like closed up, and you can see right here, there's no space to pour that plastic in. You've got a nice opening for the body, and then you've got another opening for the tail. So you're gonna pour this thing in two different places, but you've gotta make sure that you can get that plastic to get through the entire bait underneath of this section here. You've got basically the rear section of an injection bait, yet all the creative possibilities and what open pouring brings to you with the rest of the bait. So that was a general overview of the specs of the bait. Now let's look into some general guidelines that you can use, setting up the hot plate. What kind of temperatures are we looking at for the plastisol that will really help you get the results that you're after? This bait, more so than a lot of other open pours, is really all about flow. You need that plastisol to come down into effectively the top of this bait and be able to flow through this section here without cooling down too fast, creating a wall, creating a barrier, a dam there, that when you then pour in on this side and the plastisol comes down inside of this tail and it starts filling in, it meets right there and you get an air pocket. That's what you want to avoid. So the way that you do that is by heat. You need to have this mold hot. You've got to have it warmed up on the griddle, on your hot plate, more so than what I've seen with others. Also, you're going to pour your plastisol a little hotter than normal to encourage that flow. So I've got a bait here. I want to show you what I'm talking about. I am going to stick it in here. This was the first one that I poured. I just grabbed some chartreuse and some black that I had available, poured it in, and this is what I got. See that? Big hole right there. My mold was not warmed up enough. I poured the plastic, you know, my normal open pour, probably 340-ish, 345, and I filled in this section before the black. The black came last. That's what I put on last. But I filled up this section. I created a dam right here. When I went in to pour on this side, there's no air escape, right? And I trapped air right there and had a bad pour. So I mentioned heat and heat is going to be key. Let's talk specifics. I've found success setting my hot plate to 275 and then setting these molds on and letting them heat up for a good 5-10 minutes, so that by the time I touch them, before any plastisol has been poured, they are toasty. On top of that, you also need some warm plastisol, as I mentioned. I normally pour around 340, 345 in open pours, see a lot of success with that. But with these, I'm looking at 360, and depending on how thin you want the layer, especially if you're going for a bloodline, or you really want to control that gap. You really want to make sure that you don't put too much plastisol as you layer your colors. You don't want to put too much plastisol in and create that dam that we were talking about. Even 370, I would say, is realistic. I even pour the tail at 370 right before I finish the bait off with the belly color, because it's so thin right here, especially this section right here. It's a very thin part of the bait. It's a lot of surface area to cool very quick, right? As thin as it is. So this tail section, I've had the best success pouring that extra hot so that it can flow down, stay liquid, and as it moves up, it actually finishes out this section. I would have a color here. If I have a bloodline, it would be here. It's going to be leaving space at the top so that that tail color can then finish it up and push the air out as it completes that space. When I see it come through on the other side, right? When I see it pop through and I can see the plastisol, that's when I stop pouring and then turn my attention to the belly color. So if I was to summarize the keys to getting this bait to pour properly just about every time. Of course, there's always opportunities for weird stuff to happen, but if you can keep two things in mind: heat on the mold and on the plastisol, and air management. You're looking to get that air out of that hidden section by pushing it from one direction or from the other, so that you don't create an obstacle on either side, and then as you finish, you trap that air right in the middle. Let me show you some successful pours, and then we'll jump over to the soft plastic station and actually pour one of these ourselves. This is cool because just a two color. You can see that the top color goes all the way into the tail, but I left room, right, to finish the top with that belly color. So the belly color goes all the way back and extends into the tail. Similar look on this one. Top color goes all the way to the back of the tail, but this one's got a bloodline in it. The idea with this one was extend the color of the bloodline all the way through and into the majority of that tail. So looks pretty cool. Then a white belly on that one. If you don't want that tail color, that top color rather, to extend all the way into the tail, this is a pretty neat little design. My goal here was to make a very thin bloodline. So the belly color is a lot thicker on this one, but let that thin bloodline then be the entire color of the tail. This was a challenging pour to get a full tail, the color of the bloodline, but keep that bloodline thin without creating any of the dam stuff that we were talking about. All right, those were some of my favorites. Hopefully you guys liked them too. Let me head over to the bucket, find some remelt, and let's pour some of these. Molds are on the hot plate warming up as I speak. I actually have it set to 300, not to 275, because I know I'm going to get the question, and I'll go ahead and clear it up right now. The molds are actually sitting on these guys. This is a diffuser plate that I got off of Amazon. They run about 20 bucks a piece. I wanted something that was going to take the heat that comes from that coil underneath of the hot plate and diffuse it so it would spread out across the molds better. It does work well, takes a little bit longer for the molds to heat up, and you lose about 25 degrees. So knowing that, I'm going to set mine to 300, These guys will be up to 275. A little bit more time, but the diffusement of that heat seems to be working pretty well. Color-wise, I've got three. We're going to do a top color that, as best as we can, does not extend beyond that top fin. Then we're going to do a bloodline, and then we're going to do, obviously, a belly color. I'd like to take the bloodline color and make that the tail color as well. This is going to be the first color that we deal with. This will be the top of the bait because remember it's a belly pour, so the first color that you pour in is the top. So it's kind of a goldish silver type deal. And then I've got some purple with some flake in it. That will be our bloodline as well as our tail, ideally, fingers crossed. And then, of course, a classic white belly to top it off. First color is all warmed up. Let me show you in the mold where we're going to stop pouring. So that's a top-down view. You see that fin right there, that back fin? So this is the main dorsal fin. That's the second one that's right behind it. When I see the plastic come through that fin and just start to touch that, that fin continues on into the mold. So I'll stop pouring once I see it touch that fin. All right, 360 going in. Nice and slow. Get that first fin and boom. It just touched the other. Now let's do the rest. Ooh, go fast there. There we go. All right, second color is just about warmed up, but before we pour it, I actually want to show you from the side, inside the mold, how much room we have to work with when we pour this bloodline. There's the cavity. We want to fill up about half of that with this bloodline. Just for the sake of clarity, right? That was you looking this direction down inside the mold. We could see where the plastisol ends and where that cavity opens up. All right, we are ready to go. This is 370. Again, this middle layer, and especially since we're going to be pouring this in the tail and we want it to stay liquid, this is the one, in my experience, where you want it to be pretty toasty. There we go. Can let it go. If it happens to go through the tail, that's not a problem, right? We had that entire tail to work with, and we're going to pour this into the main part of the tail anyway, so not a big deal. Just so long as you don't get so much in there that it cools and it closes it down on you. And now the tail. Super hot plastic, let it flow, and I'm watching on the other side when I see it pop through. It's going to go down, and there it is. It's starting to come through the other side. Not uncommon for it to sink down a bit. If you got to put just a tad bit of your belly color in the very bottom, not the end of the world. There it comes. I can see it. You guys can't, but I can see it coming through there, so that looks good. And there it comes. I'm going to go ahead and top these off. It should be cool enough in the middle. We'll have to see that the it's already solidified now, even though this was really hot plastic. We'll pour one and see if it continues to move. Just barely. Yep. That one actually, I mean, it's just creeping like molasses, which is what we want. Beautiful. All right, last color is in the microwave. It's just that white top. But I wanted to give you another side view of what we've done thus far. And there you go. You can see how our hidden section is full. All we've got left is some of the belly section there, and as well as that little mini fin right on top. All right, we're ready to go. This last color is probably the one you could get away the most with a lower temperature. I still like it to be in that 360 range because it's got a nice thin line. There's a small spot there with that little mini fin on the very back that a nice thin pour line is very helpful. So I keep it still right around 360 or so. I'm just gonna fill these guys up. I do try to get this little mini fin first so that I don't trap any air in there as the belly fills up, because there's nowhere for it to go if I do. As usual, little over pour is not a problem. As this cools, the plastisol will shrink down into the mold a little bit and pull some of that in, but any overage can just be easily pinched off. See that nice thin stream allows me to get into that space there. It's helpful. There we go. And that is that. So we will leave these on the hot plate. I haven't changed the temperature, still 275. Full heat, obviously, because it's been on the hot plate this long, and we're putting very hot plastisol into it. So let her ride for about 10 minutes, shut it off, and try to let these cool down as naturally as they can. Once that is done, I will show you the final results. Molds have been chilling out here for quite a while. They are nice and cool. So let's check out our work. Alrighty. Oh yeah. Ooh, that color looks pretty good too. There it is. So the key area here, we don't want to see an air bubble, right? It was poured like that. So we don't want to see that air bubble right there. Of course, we always want to see everything filled in, but that was a successful pour. Jig head here, hook right out of the top. Yeah. So if I was to do anything different, I would maybe bring this top layer down a little bit further and try to take it just to maybe the end. It's got a little bump there before it gets thin. See that? So try to take that color all the way to the end, which is going to fill in this space here just a little bit, but still leaves plenty for the bloodline. But that looks good. Let's check out the other guys, see if they turned out as nice. Confident that they will. Oh yeah. Sweet. One more. There we are. Hey, hey. 3 for 3. No tail issues, no air bubbles. Good. Everything has bonded well together. Very nice. You can see the curve on that tail. And then this last little piece just gives you even more action. Very nice. Alright guys, that's going to do it for today. I'd call that a successful pour. Appreciate you guys joining me. I know I wasn't on the front end of this launch, but I really wanted to take my time with this one, really learn this mold and pass on to you all the lessons learned that I've been able to gather from it and all the different ways that you can make some pretty sweet baits with this. So hopefully the wait was worth it. I do appreciate you guys coming along for the ride today, and until the next time, I'll see you guys in the shop.